Hey, what's up?
Hi, everybody. So, today we are doing our November entertainment wrap up, talking about entertainment consumed during um, the fall, which is basically non Halloween movies and other movies or books, in other movies we've seen, theater productions we've seen, or books that we've read. So, to begin, we wanted to provide a couple of life updates. First of all, the election results.
Yeah, because Jeannie and I both of us voted early on in this primary election. And obviously, we voted both Democrat for Kamala Harris. But unfortunately, what happened, the results kind of spread out throughout the U.S. into away from the coastline. And more people just voted for Trump. So he's the one who was our president coming up.
So yeah, we're both pretty disappointed by the election results. I'm trying to get involved in the community based on how I can help out certain um c- um charities in my area based on issues important to me to the election, and um I'm struggling to find something because I'm trying to get involved in my church with the reproductive justice team, but they haven't really scheduled any meetings lately. And then I wanted to get involved with a substance use disorder clinic in my town to get um like in order to honor Matthew Perry. So like that was a side thing that was unrelated to the election, but I decided not to volunteer there because it was in an unsafe area, and due to my issues with trusting people after being scammed, I was worried that I was going to get stuff stolen from me. So instead, I decided to look into the gay and lesbian community volunteer option that my friend Crystal does, and she said she was going to get back to me when she goes in to volunteer the next time if they're looking for people, because I would like to help out there to teach a poetry class.
And
Um,
next up, we have what happened with our art show.
so we had our art show for Double House Arts on November 8th, and it was quite successful for both of us. We sold each how many pieces of art between us?
I think between us, each of us got, I think, about four, five, six pieces of art, each of us, two of whom both were bought by my mother.
And our next art show will be either at the end of January or beginning of February, and we're starting to plan for it already. The theme will be still like seasonal scenes, and I'm still gonna sell a couple of movie quote artworks, and I also have a few new pieces that I'm working on also.
And a couple weeks ago, Jean was also on the radio show local for Portland, Maine. At the end of this video, when you're watching, we're going to send the link on where you can find Janine in order to hear her story.
The link to my radio show will be in the description below. And basically, what it is my friend Amelia from my art class asked me to talk with her on the radio about the 1 year anniversary of Matthew Perry. And we are both fans of Friends. So we talked about which episode favorites we have. And the radio show doesn't really directly focus on Matthew Perry's death so much. The songs that we played focus around a general theme of friendship. So yeah, take a listen to the show. Let me know what you think of the songs we selected, and thank you to my friend Jen Roy from New Hampshire who submitted a few recommendations for songs, and to Matt and my mother-in-law as well. So that radio show was on WMTG Maine Public Radio at the University of Southern Maine on November 10th. Um, so for next reading progress, I had two book club meetings in November. One was for print bookstore, and we talked about In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. This was in the top tier of my Halloween thriller books tier ranking, and this is a horror novel that is framed using a house as a main character. The author has very lyrical writing, and one particular um, section that I liked is the one where she talks about Savannah, Georgia. Um, on page 26, Savannah is warm and fragrant. The trees drip with Spanish moss, and the water in the fountains dye green for St. Patrick's Day. The Juliet Gordon Low house is a beautiful, rambling mansion crowded with antiques. Underneath the Juliet Gordon Low birthplace sign hangs over the entrance. She eggs you on into increasingly ridiculous poses. You are both giggling when you go inside. The ancient woman staffing it, who are all wearing drag queen lipstick and eyeshadow, responds with excited pronouncements about your love of Girl Scouting with silence. So, this trigger warning, if you have been in an abusive relationship, you may not want to read this book because that is basically what it focuses on. The the author of this book wrote a basically it's a memoir using the dream house as a framing device for her abusive relationship with her ex-girlfriend. She wrote this book in 2019, and I think her relationship ended soon after the book was published. The next book that I was in a book club for was All My Puny Sorrows. This is by the same author who wrote Miriam Towes, and I joined a Broadway centered book club at the library. And this book focuses around a recent production of Dear Evan Hansen that Portland Ovations recently did. And this book is set in Canada, and it's basically about depression and how um, it kind of runs in this girl's family because the dad has depression and so does the daughter, and the dad is also an alcoholic. So I should have probably also talked about this video in my tier ranking video for substance use disorder. So I gave this book 4.5 stars on Goodreads, and I gave this book 5 stars. And another book that I'm reading right now that I wanted to give an update for progress on is the recent release by Mimi Matthews in the Bells of London series, which is romance novels that are set in Regency England, kind of around the same time as Bridgerton or My Lady Jane. And the thing I like the best about this book is that one of the main male characters has a disability. He is wheelchair bound because of scarlet fever. And I just really love how his disability is represented. In a previous book that I read in this series, The Belle of Belgrave Square, which I read in March or April, I think, that main female character had anxiety, and like Abby Jimenez did, and um, yours truly, I really like how the author of this book really zeroed in on the coping mechanisms that the main character used to deal with her anxiety. Uh, in the case of this main character, in the Belle of Belgrave Square, it was being out in nature and riding her horse. Um, but yeah, I really just love the setting and the atmosphere of this book, and I am at the point right now where Stella and Teddy are starting to fall in love with each other, and their relationship is very sweet. And
So I want to give an
so,
update.
so this book is going to get 4.5 stars probably.
Okay, sorry. Now I want to give an update on my reading progress. I just finished this book by Riley Seeger called Home Before Dark,
We both read it
and we
together.
both read it together. Now, the main character in this, named Maggie Holt, is back into her house in Vermont called Bainbury Hill. Many people who told her do not return there because it's haunted and there could be a history of some couple of ghosts that make up this thriller that also recollects on her memory from her father when she was a little girl experiencing all those hallucinations inside the house.
Basically, After her dad dies, she goes back to her house to empty it, and everybody in the town knows her as the girl who was in the horror book.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like Riley Sager's plot twists. He does a really good job with that, like Rita McFadden does. And what would you give this book for a ranking?
I give it like a 4.5 out of 5.
I agree. I agree. Um, the next thing we wanted to talk about is final thoughts on Daisy Jones and the Six, which we are almost done with. We still have one more episode to watch, which we will probably watch sometime next week.
And so far, my thoughts on Elvis Presley's granddaughter playing the role of Daisy. She's really collecting herself and patronizing the roles very well, just like the Daisy in the book did.
Mm-hmm. I agree. They really did good with the casting of Daisy. And in this episode that we watched last night, their manager goes into the hospital because he has a heart attack. And that scene was really emotional for me. I almost actually cried during it.
Right, and then the last episode is going to be when the band plays one of their final gigs in Chicago.
So we're going to talk about theater and music performances now. The first performance we wanted to talk about is this concert that we saw at the end of September in downtown Portland over by where the library is. This piano player from, where was she from? Was she from China?
Japan.
Japan. So this piano player from Japan played a piano concert about songs that are centered around nature. And I think my favorite song that she played was called Mystic Pool. What about you?
Well, I think Mystic Pool was nice, but she also had imagined woodland scene for Maine by artists like Amy Beach and William Grant Still.
I agree. I like the songs too. Um,
And
so
then we're going to compare now the comparisons of when we watched productions of Little Mermaid.
so we are comparing the version of the Little Mermaid that I did with the Amherst PTA and the recent production that we saw at Manchester Community Theatre Players that we saw on October 20th. Um, so first of all, to begin, I was in the ensemble in The Little Mermaid and the Under the Sea in the Kiss the Girl ensemble, and to speak on those particular pieces, I really liked how Manchester Community Theatre did those pieces. I thought they really did a good job, and I thought the costumes in the Under the Sea um, scene were a lot more colorful than the one in the show that I did. Um, and and I noticed that some people throughout the production had trouble with their microphones too in the Manchester Community Theatre Players show. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that.
So our friends Amanda, Sonia, and Sean were in this play, and our friend Lexi went with us. Lexi said she didn't really have a favorite song or a favorite character, but our favorite characters in The Little Mermaid are Ariel, Sebastian, Flounder, who is played by our good friend Kazi Frashara, um, Ursula, uh, Prince Eric, who is played by our friend Xana Bader, and
And Sonia Sonberg, who plays Chef Louis.
um, so um, our favorite songs are obviously Under the Sea, Kiss the Girl, Fathoms Below,
The Daughters of Triton.
The Daughters of Triton, the If Only Quartet that is sung by Ariel, Sebastian, Prince Triton, and Prince Eric. I mean, King Triton and Prince Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And a song we really like a lot that's not in the musical is called I
Want the Good Times Back.
Right, that is sung by Ursula and Flotsam and Jetsam. And in the musical, what I really like is that Ursula has a backstory more than she did in the Disney animated movie. Because she is Prince King Triton's sister from like a first marriage or something. And I really like that plot development for Ursula and Triton because it adds a new layer to their relationship that isn't in the film version. that came out in 1989. That has been out for how many years?
35 years now.
35 years. Um,
Now, you see, the reason why we kind of like Chef Louis in this production too is because when some people asked me if I wanted to be in the production of Little Mermaid, which I ended up not doing, then a couple of friends thought I could be a pretty good Chef Louis myself.
so when we were out to dinner at Margarita's for the combined birthday party for Lexi and I after the play, Amanda and Sonia were telling us that they thought that Sonia Spongberg did a really good job with the Chef Louis accent. And our friend Gary LaLiberty plays Chef Louis in a PTA show. I mean, I thought he did a good job with the accent too.
Yes, indeed.
Um so the next character that we wanted to compare is Grimsby, who is played by our friend Michael Stedman with the Amherst PTA, and my friend Lori Coyle um, with MCTP. And Grimsby is he's like Prince Eric's.
I think I think it would be almost like a father figure. Let's say that.
He's a father figure to Prince Eric because his parents died when he was a baby. And I mean, I really liked Laurie's interpretation of Grimsby because, like, she showed more of a motherly point of view to Prince Eric than, well, and I guess you could say that in the movie of The Little Mermaid, Grimsby is a father figure to Prince Eric because his father is dead. His parents are dead.
Right.
The next character we wanted to compare is Ariel, who is played by our good friend Sophie Linkram. Hi, Sophie, if you're watching, we miss you guys. So she was played by our good friend Sophie Linkram in the Amherst PTA production, and then in the MCTP production, Ariel was played by Erin Marshall, who this was her second production with Manchester Community Theatre Players, and I really think she did a great job.
But in the first Little Mermaid, when Sophie played Ariel, she was more to me like the character Ariel is notable for the voice and the costume, and she had that red wig that is so recognizable. Erin Marshall, not quite so much.
Well, because isn't her hair originally red, so she doesn't have to wear a wig?
No, that's not what I thought was naturally red.
Oh, then what was it?
It might have been like brunette, but maybe she had the highlights.
Oh, that could have been true. So the next character we wanted to talk about is Xana Bader and Will Desharnais, who played Prince Eric. So, um, I was only in two PTA plays with Will. The first was The Little Mermaid, and the second, he was originally cast to be the older brother character in Tuck Everlasting that John Sheridan, or was it John Sheridan? What was his last name? I can't remember. His first name is John. He's the guy who did the
I think it was Sheridan.
John Sheridan. Yeah, he was the guy who did the AI robot uh uh show that's on YouTube that you guys can watch. We will, if I can find it, we can also link that in the description so you guys can watch it. Um so in the MCTP production of The Little Mermaid,
Xana Bader,
Xana
who played
Bader
Eric.
played Prince Eric. We have known Xana since she did shows at Riverbend Youth Company, but back then she was female and she recently transitioned to being transgender a couple of years ago. So now she uses they pronouns instead of he, she, her, which takes a while to get used to sometimes. But she did really good play. They did really good playing Prince Eric. And I mean, so did Will. Um,
And finally, we want to compare Sebastian, Dan Arlen in MCTP, and our good friend who played Sebastian in the PTA production. What was his name again?
James Middleton, who recently had a birthday.
No, it was not James Middleton who played Sebastian.
Oh no, no.
It was the one who played Farquaad.
Oh, Eric, I'm so
Eric
sorry. I messed that up.
Skoglund.
Eric Skoglund. Eric, yes. I was confusing performances. I'm sorry. So, Eric Skoglund, who was Farquaad in our Shrek musical. The reason why I thought he was James, I don't know why. I guess I'm just really tired. I'm getting over a cold, so excuse if I'm a little brain foggy today. But yeah, so Eric won a New Hampshire Theater Award for playing Lord Farquaad in Shrek and also for playing Sebastian. He was really great. Um, I thought Dan did a really fantastic job at playing Sebastian too. He had his own twist to the character. He was in Alice in Wonderland with me when I did Alice in Wonderland in 2018 with MCTP.
But unfortunately, like Gene said, due to a number of microphones not being in sync sometimes, he was a little bit offbeat when we saw him perform that song. Now,
So, I noticed that more with the ensemble characters in Under the Sea and Kiss the Girl, and not really with Dan or any of the lead characters. The problem with the microphones. I was able to hear Dan pretty well,
but
actually.
anyway, what I'm saying is, I could also be perform Under the Sea myself, and I could also post a link where you can find me doing that, but it's not under my homepage. And now we're gonna review the Kennebunk High School theater review of Hunchback of Notre Dame.
At the beginning of November, Matt's mom got us tickets to see The Hunchback of Notre Dame at Kennebunk High School. Uh, so this is a more darker Disney movie, and I'm not really sure how it got approved to be a movie for kids because if you take away some of the happy music, it's really quite frightening for children. I always felt that way. So, our favorite songs in Hunchback are God Help the Outcast, which was sung by Demi Moore in the Disney movie because she played Esmeralda in the Disney movie. Um, Out There, which is sung by Quasimodo. Rhythm of the Tambourine, which is sung by Esmeralda in the Feast of Fools scene. And Topsy Turvy, which is the introduction song to the Feast of Fools scene. Her favorite characters in Hunchback were notable performances were by Noah Hammond, who is a senior this year at Kennebunk High, Avery Rosix, who played Esmeralda, Stackpole, who played Clopin, the court gesture in the Feast of Fools scene, and Jay Cogmeyer, who played Captain Phobos.
And now we're gonna have a review of the best Christmas pageant ever, which earlier this afternoon we went to watch in our theater.
We just got back from the movies where we saw the best Christmas pageant ever. The movie is narrated from the point of view of adult Beth, who is portrayed by Lauren Graham from Gilmore Girls, and it is her reflecting on when she was 8, probably, and she was in the Christmas pageant of her church, and this really rebellious, rowdy group of kids, the Herdmans, who are poor and kind of abandoned by their parents, I think.
That's one of the reasons why they bully the other kids.
So it's basically about how these kids are in the church Christmas pageant for the first time, and all of the Herdman characters really grow to be better people by the end of the movie as they learn about their characters in the Bible, because basically they go to church service just so they can eat the food in the coffee hour that's after the service because they're poor and they don't have a lot of food at their house. So,
And also during the pageant, that the father of Beth, he brought them a big ham, but they didn't end up eating it. They were using it as a prop for the pageant. And at the very end, I was so emotionally, I cried, and because they did such a terrific job, and I had to agree it would have been one of the best Christmas pageant ever myself seen.
And I think all of the characters grow by the end of the movie because the Herdmans grow because of their experience in the pageant and how much they learn. And I think the main character grows, and so does the rest of her family by working with the Herdmans in the Christmas pageant because they're obviously the main character, Beth, and her little brother, Charlie, are bullied by the Herdmans, but they realize that they're human beings too, and that the Christmas pageant is important to them because it shows a different side of them to other people in the community, which is basically the whole town. The whole town basically looks down upon the Herdman kids because they bully their children.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they are so surprised that they get roles in the Christmas pageant. What would you give Best Christmas Pageant Ever for a ranking?
For a ranking, I would give it 8.5 out of 10 stars.
I would too. Uh, so next we're going to tier rank movies with fall vibes, back to school movies, which we watched during September, October, and November. The only movie that we're going to mention in this tier ranking that we haven't watched yet, but we watch every year, is The Blind Side. Um, so S tier is memorable acting performances and quotable lines. The first movie is a movie we watched last year that we did not get to watch this year, but since this is a cumulative ranking of the past 2 years of watching movies, we are including this movie and also the Ron Clark story. So Freedom Riders is a movie from 2007 that stars Hilary Swank, and she plays a real life teacher who worked with underprivileged kids in San Francisco and was a high school creative writing teacher. And I really loved that. I love this movie. It has, like the Ron Clark story, it has a really powerful message about self expression because in Freedom Riders, this teacher teaches her students about creative writing. And then in the Ron Clark story with Matthew Perry, who plays Ron Clark, he plays a teacher who works with teenagers in an underprivileged Harlem elementary school who are in, like, I think fifth grade. I think they were in fifth grade.
Around fifth grade.
So, that's what I really like the
And we
best
gave
about.
that an S tier.
Yes, right now we're talking about the S tier movies. The next movie in this tier is Mean Girls.
Yes, Mean Girls was adapted from, what was the name of the book?
Queen Bees and Wannabes, which I still haven't read yet. It's still on my TBR.
And the original movie with Lindsay Lohan as her character, Kate, really makes the nice list, and so does the other characters. But then when you get to the movie musical this year, when she had a cameo appearance, that kind of a little faded compared to.
We will get to the Mean Girls musical movie in a little bit. The next movie that we wanted to talk about is one of my favorite back to school themed movies. It is called The Dead Poet Society. It came out in 1989 and stars Robin Williams as Jack Keating, who is a English professor at a private high school for teenage boys.
And it's set in the state of Vermont.
Besides Robin Williams' acting performance in this movie, the other thing that I like is the scenery because it's set in New England. Vermont is also a New England state along with Maine and New Hampshire. So, um, that's the reason why we rank this movie in S tier. And as I just said, we have previously reviewed the Ron Clark story. So if you want to go back and watch our video where we review Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, we mentioned that movie in that video. So we don't want to sound too repetitive.
Right.
In A tier, we have Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and Matilda. We did not watch these movies for this review series, but I'm including them because they're movies we need to add to our rotation because they are two of my favorites. We have seen the musical version of Matilda as well as the original 1996 movie with Mara Wilson, Danny DeVito, and Rita Perlman, and also the Netflix 2023 musical movie. And the reason why I consider Matilda a good back to school movie is also because it's set in an elementary school. And I like the relationship development between Matilda and Miss Honey. And I also think the relationship between her and the school librarian, Miss Phelps, is really sweet.
But also, like Roald Dahl, there comes this member of the family who's very poorly treated. It's the kids,
Matilda is abused by her parents, and so is Harry Potter.
and not to mention the principal, Miss Trenchable. So don't forget her.
Miss Trunchbull is one of the most awful movie villains I've ever experienced in a live action movie. I don't like her at all. And when we saw Matilda, when the Amherst PTA did it back in April, we have to commend our friend Ben Ardoti on his performance as Miss Trunchbull because he was fabulous. And another fabulous person was our friend Genevieve, who played Miss Honey.
Oh, definitely.
Um, and for B tier, the first movie we wanted to mention is Clueless, which is from 1995. It stars Alicia Silverstone as Cher Horowitz and Paul Rudd, who plays her stepbrother Josh.
Mm-hmm.
As we all know, Paul Rudd went on to be Mike Hannigan, Phoebe's husband in Friends, and Ant-Man in the Marvel movies. Um, and I'm sure he's done other things in between all that. I just don't remember what other movies he's done. What did you like the best about Clueless? We watched this in June.
I kind of liked how the family development was easily recognizable. Plus, I got to see Alicia in person for the first time.
So, Alicia Silverstone was recently in the 2021 Netflix Babysitters Club TV show. She plays Christy Thomas's mother, Elizabeth, and she did really. The reason why I wanted to watch Clueless was because A, I thought she did good at playing Elizabeth Thomas in Babysitters Club, and B, because I grew up in the 90s, but I had never, ever, ever seen Clueless, and I mean, I thought it was a really great movie, and it's also a modern interpretation of Jane Austen's Emma,
Mm-hmm.
which you should all read. I gave that book 4.5 stars on Goodreads back in May when I read it.
Now, the next B tier movie is called She's a Man.
She's the Man stars Amanda Bynes from All That and the Amanda Show, and she was in this movie after she was on All That. And wait, was this after or before?
It was after. This was when Amanda. This movie's from 2006.
I know. Was she still doing the Amanda Show?
No.
Okay. I couldn't remember. So yeah. So this is a modern retelling of the play by William Shakespeare, Twelfth Night. Um, it is a tale of uh miscommunication and also like people who um switch roles because basically
And the reason is this character Amanda plays. She's a soccer player, but the college that she goes to would not accept a girls' soccer team.
it wasn't college, it was high school. And her brother Sebastian plays for the opposing team soccer team. So basically, um, she trades places with her brother so she can prove to the boys soccer coach that she plays soccer. Again, this is a movie that came out when I was in high school.
In college.
In college that I had never seen, and I mean, I was a big fan of Amanda Bynes because of All That and the Amanda Show. So this movie was a lot of fun.
And the next one we have is The Blind Side,
which we haven't watched yet, but we can based on previous viewings of this movie, why would we rank it in B tier?
It is a little based on a true story, and Sandra Bullock is in it.
Sandra Bullock is one of my favorite actresses, and one movie we need to add to our Halloween movie viewing next year is Practical Magic.
And also, what I discovered with Sandra Bullock is she has a themed restaurant which sells breakfast and lunch named after her in Austin, Texas.
We might travel there sometime. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
This is based on a true story of an actual football player from the NFL named Michael Orr, and the family that this movie is based on was actually sued by Michael Orr last year for using all of the funds that all of his funds from the movie to like live their own rich lifestyle. Like this happens to a lot of celebrities, mostly child stars, but I think Michael Orr was much older than a child during the time this all stuff with The Blind Side happened. Um so the next movie that we wanted to talk about is The Replacements.
And this movie stars Gene Hackman as it's nearing the end of the NFL season. And for some reason, all the players are going to get taken out of. So what does he do? He pulls in a number of other people to replace them who at first kind of don't get along and they create their own tantics.
This movie also stars Keanu Reeves from The Matrix, which we still also need to
That's
see.
right, Keanu Reeves.
He plays the replacement football player, and he was really good in this movie. I have not seen The Matrix yet, but we are adding that to our 2025 viewing schedule.
His role was a quarterback, by the way.
And he was a good quarterback. So there are only two movies to talk about in C tier. They are Easy A with Emma Stone and Lisa Kudrow, and
Mean Girls musical movie.
so with Easy A, we rated this movie a C plus. This is also based on a Shakespeare play, but I don't remember, or a classic book, but I don't remember the name of the book or play it's based on. I have to look up the description on IMDb again. Easy A is set in a modern day high school. Like Olive Pendergast, who's played by Emma Stone, is like trying to uh get a rumor away from her that she's a slut, so she um tries to get out of that situation. We watched this in our series of movies with Friends actors in them that they were on before, after, or during Friends. And Lisa Kudrow, who is Phoebe on Friends, played the guidance counselor in this movie, Mrs. Griffiths. And the reason why we rate this movie so low is because of the fact that Mrs. Griffiths has an affair with her 17-year-old student because she's jealous of her husband, and that leads to them divorcing. And for the Mean Girls musical movie, we saw this movie in January when it first came out in the theater. And as Matt mentioned at the beginning of the tier ranking when we were talking about the original Mean Girls movie, Lindsay Lohan makes
Cameo.
a cameo as the leader of the debate team competition, and she didn't really look that good. She
No, that
has
was not like her recognizable one at age 18 when she did her role.
um yeah, and I also didn't like Aaron Samuels in the musical because I feel like he didn't have a lot of songs, first of all, and I feel like he should have had at least one or two. And then I feel like he really should have stood up to Regina's bullying instead of just sitting there and watching her bully other people. Like, that really annoyed me. What didn't you like about the Mean Girls musical movie?
Well, I didn't recognize Renee Rapp, and she didn't do as good a job of Regina as the other one did, Rachel McAdams.
Um,
Plus, you're right, where he takes away from the songs, from the actual plot, it wasn't as recognizable for me.
Renee Rapp was Regina George in the Broadway production of Mean Girls, and I think that's how she got the role in the movie. Before watching. I wasn't familiar with Renee Rapp either before I saw the Mean Girls musical movie, but I thought she did good playing Regina, not as good as Rachel McAdams. And maybe the next movie comparison we should do is between The Notebook and Mean Girls, and compare Rachel McAdams' performances, because she was in those movies in the same year, in 2004
Oh,
or
nice.
2003. So
Okay, we're gonna finish up with the top new releases for the holiday.
so I have been reading a lot of Christmas books lately, and I will have a video coming out later this week tier ranking all of those books. So in case you're looking for Christmas books to read, stay tuned to that video, and that will also be linked in the description below. The top holiday new releases I wanted to talk about were A Very Merry Murder Plot, which is by Jen McKinley, who is a new author I discovered this year. um Make the Season Bright by Ashley Herring Blake, who writes a lot of female romances. She wrote a series called Bright Falls. That's a 3-book series that's set in a town that is very similar to Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls. And I'm going to be reviewing that when I wrap up my Christmas books, because I'm going to be discussing that in a couple of weeks with the book club at the bookstore that I discussed in the Dream House in. And then the other book I wanted to talk about is Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. Tessa Bailey is the queen of smutty scenes in her books, and I like that sometimes. There wasn't as much smut that I noticed in Window Shopping as there are in her other books, which I really actually that made me enjoy the book a lot more. Um so for upcoming videos, as I just mentioned, I'm going to be reviewing I'm going to be tier ranking holiday books later this week, and that video will be linked in the description. And then closer to the end of the month, we're going to do our holiday wrap up video where we're going to review holiday movies.
And we're gonna
And
start watching some this week with movies like Elf.
right. And we're Matt will also talk about his Christmas pageant at church. So that video will be out after Christmas. And then at the end of January, we're going to be talking about all non-holiday movies that we watched in December, which includes Wicked, Moana 2, and Inception.
And we're gonna be watching Inception at one of the bookstores for Philosophy Group in downtown Portland.
And we're also going to be having in addition to discussing the movie, we're going to be talking about um who puts Christ in Christmas as one of our topics. So if you want to weigh in with your topic on that below in the comments, you can, and then we can have a discussion on philosophy in our next video. The December and January entertainment wrap up will be out the weekend after Martin Luther King weekend. So we will see you guys in a couple of weeks when we do our holiday wrap up, and we hope everybody has a safe and fun Christmas and Hanukkah.
And I hope you like our decorations, which we put up this weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody.